We have arrived. This is Route 941, brought to you by the world's greatest shoe store, Greenlee Shoe.
This is Dennis. Glad you're riding shotgun with me as we travel our region to find the best in local country music. Tonight on Route 941, we're headed to Windsor, Nova Scotia. We're going to spend some time with Terra Spencer. Now, she's a respected singer and songwriter, and she's made other very well-known writers like Ron Sexsmith and Dave Gunning take notice. Her songs paint pictures of the stories that she tells, whether it's songs of personal memories or a thought. You're going to feel enveloped in the conversation and that you're walking beside her in the yesteryear of Nova Scotia. Terra, thanks for taking time to chat with me tonight on Country 94.
What a beautiful introduction, Dennis. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. You know what? I've seen your posts for a long time. I've heard your songs for a long time. And it turns out we know millions of the same people.
Well, that's a feature of the Maritimes often, isn't it?
It sure is.
Yeah, the music community is a tight one, which I've been very pleased to discover.
And I've got to say right off the top, Terra, your songs are so relatable. In listening back to your songs, I hear memories of shopping at Zellers and Sears, memories of knitted sweaters, walking on a winter's day. Somehow you even managed to talk about bologna sandwiches as well as PB and jam.
I tried to cover all the bases. I don't want to cause any divisions between people.
I kind of chuckled to myself, not because it was silly, but because it's everything that we can all relate to.
Well, I mean, that song in particular is a pretty personal one for me. Obviously, it's line by line the truth of my life in those years when I first left home and went to university in Halifax and met who would become my husband. And yeah, that was a very dense chapter of life for me, wrapped up in the minutes of that song.
Oh, it's amazing. When you're crafting your songs, when you're taking the time to actually sit down and plan them out, what's the most important part of your music? Is it the lyric, or is it a theme, or is it a melody?
It's the story of a song that gets me every time, more so than a riff or a groove that I catch on to. It's really the details. I love songs that make a little movie in your mind. And for me, the songwriting experience, being fairly new to it over the past few years, has been a way of kind of scrapbooking moments in my own life. So those details in the lyrics, that's usually what it starts with for me. You know, some specific little event or something someone has said, that'll be the driver of a song.
Right. And what I really appreciate your music as well and your songs is that your songs just kind of tell their own story. They flow eloquently on their own.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I marvel at people who write songs with lyrics that don't rhyme.
Right.
You know, for me, that's kind of a way of fitting the puzzle pieces together is those rhymes. So I'm glad it's not too on the nose to the listener. For me, I come maybe from the older school or more of the folk side, where if a song takes 5 minutes to tell its story, then so be it. I don't fret over it.
Going back to what you were saying about, songs are being personal and it really gives a snapshot of time where you were. Your songs are really personal. You're writing them from your perspective. But at the same time, I can still put myself in the same story that you're telling.
Well, I think that's been a little bit of a shift. You know, the first album, a lot of the songs were real, like, heartache songs. And I had to make it abundantly clear that wasn't all autobiographical. You know, I've been married for a long time, and my husband's one of the world's best humans. I wanted to really underscore the fact that not all those songs were ripped from my diary pages. And that's why the record's called Other People's Lives.
Oh, that's great.
Drive home the point, like, not all about me. We're doing okay.
And you know what? I've had the same conversation with my wife as well, because I've written a lot of songs that are from personal perspective.
Sure.
But at the same time, I wanted to challenge myself to write from somebody else's perspective. So my wife heard me writing a song and singing it, and she said, why does it always have to be so sad? I said, well, it's not about you and I. This is about fictitious people.
Right. And I always say, like, other writers aren't always expected to write about themselves. Like, I don't think Stephen King has been through all of the experiences that he writes about,
That's a great example.
And, my husband doesn't bat an eye now, whatever it is I'm writing about it. He's not fazed by it.
I hear you there. My wife is a painter, so it's for her it's the same thing. She doesn't always paint exactly the same lake scene that she sees every day. So.
Exactly, yeah. And Andrew and I met doing theater, so it was pretty clear that we were able to walk in other people's shoes
there you
to
go.
tell a story.
When I'm listening to your songs, we were sitting out on the deck and I had your album playing. I could hear Karen Carpenter, I could hear Joni Mitchell, and I could actually hear some Sarah McLachlan in your melodies and your harmonies as well.
Wow.
Who inspires you?
Well, my gosh, you kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, Karen Carpenter she's top tier for me. You know, she, in those records, I kind of inherited my aunt's record collection that she left in my grandparents' basement where I learned how to play music. And Karen
incredible.
Carpenter was it for me. I still think she's maybe one of the greatest singers of all time, and certainly a voice that I would buy her to, but yeah, she's perfection. And at the same time, you know, I cut my musical teeth during the 90s when Sarah McLachlan was absolutely an influence.
For sure. And she's not too far from your neighborhood as well, so
that's
that
right.
helps.
Yeah. Good ear, Dennis. You nailed it.
Oh, there you go. So tell me about how things get set up when you're starting to write a song.
Oh, gosh. Well, let me tell you, what happens is usually I am in the middle of a conversation I should pay attention to, or I have a task that's very important that I need to get done. And that seems to be the exact time when writing a song is the dominant thought in my mind, you know. So in the car, there are a bunch of little voice memos with the car being noisy in the background. And
right.
I have not adopted the discipline of carving out time to dedicate to writing. Really, the songwriting has just been tucked in around other bits of my life, but when a song comes, I'm useless for just about anything else, and my family's very patient and tolerant about that.
That's a very good thing, because they understand that you need to kind of follow through.
You know, some of them take a little bit of tweaking and work, and some you spend some time with and come back to over time. But boy, what a rush it is when one of them just fits itself together and it's like you weren't even really part of the process. It just arrives. All of a sudden the page is full and you play a few chords and that's it. You know, that feels magical to me, especially as someone who had songwriters put on a pedestal for the bulk of my life, never dreaming that would be something I'd figure out how to do. And I'm still figuring out how to do it. You know?
I'm with you. I'm still discovering my voice. I'm still learning how to write songs. And I think that continues through all the way through your career. If you're open to it, you just never stop learning how to do those things. Right?
I hope so, because I'll tell you, you know, this chapter, this experience of songwriting has given me more energy than the strongest coffee ever could. You know, it is really the thing that gets me out of bed early and keeps me up late at night. And, you know, discovering your voice too. You know, it doesn't take much to realize that I'm not any kind of a trained singer. So that's part of it too. And I also get a lot of satisfaction out of writing songs that I intend to give away. You know, I hear other people's voices and other characters, and that I think will be the next big step for me, you know, having songs being adopted by other people. Yeah, hugely exciting.
Let's talk about your latest album. It's called Chasing Rabbits from 2020, and you recorded that at the Sonic Temple in Halifax.
Yeah. So I had recorded the song you mentioned earlier, In the City, back in 2018, just as a single song, and fell in love with this place in Halifax on Hollis Street, and in particular a piano there. And it just sounded like Charlie Brown Christmas to me, like being inside a snow globe. And
oh my goodness, I heard that actually. I could detect a little bit of that when I was listening to it.
Oh,
yes.
That's great. Well, I made a wish that night. You know, that was such a magical night with that string quartet, Bella String Quartet there in this beautiful studio. And, you know, I just kind of threw it out to the universe, like, I'm going to come back here someday and make a winter record. So that's really what Chasing Rabbits was conceived as. I collected up my wintry songs, or at least some of them, and went back to Sonic Temple to put it all together there. But it was during the pandemic. We actually recorded it bit by bit in July, a year ago exactly, which is a strange time to be playing all these winter songs.
Sure.
But it was a beautiful experience. and I still love that piano. I take any excuse I can to go back and play it.
Now, what about the recording process where, with COVID restrictions and everything, were you able to play in the same room as other people? Or
Not at all, in fact. I play solo nearly all the time. So
yeah.
I was so excited about the prospect. I had handpicked every musician. There are 18 people that appear on the record, and had great dreams of us all getting together in this beautiful space. And quite the opposite happened. We could only come in ones and twos, like Noah's Ark, and come in and record these parts. But it was a great exercise for me as a producer, having to map out all of these parts, write string parts and horn parts, and then at the end pray that they all fit together and made sense after the recording. So yeah, a great experience, just not the one that I anticipated when I headed into the project.
I'm sure that was the case, but it turned out great. I mean, the acoustic guitar, the mandolin, piano, fiddle, soft, smooth vocals. I mean, it all just, it recorded so well that I can actually I went so far as to close my eyes and I could actually feel the room that you were recording in. I suspected it was probably lit with some candles, and there may have even been a dog or two nearby.
I'm so glad. I mean, the space was so important to me because it was part of, why that album came to be. That if you ever get your hands on a CD copy, if you're old school like that, it's a photo of the rug in the studio.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah, so, I just really, the place where the album was made was such an important piece, and Lil, the engineer, was just such a brilliant co-pilot on the project.
It actually feels like you're right in my living room, and I mean that in the best possible way. So expect an e-transfer before very shortly. Terra, what's next for you and your music?
Well, the summer looks busy. I'm knocking on wood like crazy. The rug can get pulled out at any point, but it makes it that much more precious. So for the summer, the big focus will be live shows, between the tribute ones and then my own solo shows, centered here in Nova Scotia, just to play it safe for a little while longer. And I'm never a person to count my chickens before they hatch, especially after the past year and a half. But it does look like I'll begin work on another recording project. I'm so hopeful that it happens that I'm spooked to say too much about it. But yeah, another batch of songs and a different approach, working with a producer this time rather than just going it on my own. And very happy about that. Yeah, I'm also hoping there are a couple of slots for some great acts that I've always admired that were postponed. A tour with my friend David Francie that I hope gets to happen next year, and maybe some touring outside of Nova Scotia on my own. So
it's looking good again, but with bated breath at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah, it'd all be gravy at this point.
Well, Terra, thanks so much for chatting with me here tonight on Route 941 on Country 94.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for giving songwriters their due. I know they mean so much to me, and I know they do you too. So thank you.
From her 2020 album Chasing Rabbits, this is Terra Spencer with Lunenburg Moon on Country 94.
The church glowing golden, I remember your smile and the echo of footsteps as we met in the aisle. And the music was gentle, but it lifted us high. It was just an old folk song, but it still made me cry. We went to a party with some friends down the street. The wine kept on flowing as we followed our feet to a house on the hillside while the town was asleep. Every step on the staircase had a secret to keep. All the words I remember I remember the tune at the end of September, and me and you and the Lunenburg moon. Your hand I was holding, my heart skipping beats in the bed of a captain with sails for its sheets, and the room was so quiet, just whispers and waves. In the darkness we drifted, two souls to be saved. All the words I remember, and I remember the tune at the end of September, and me and you and the Lunenburg moon. Now we're far from a harbor, and the ship has sailed on, and the shore winds blow colder the longer you're gone. And I wait by the window, and I watch the snow fly, and you're miles from the ocean with no moon in the sky. All the words I remember, and I remember the tune at the end of September, and me and you and the Lunenburg moon. At the end of September, and me and you and the Lunenburg moon.
Thanks for riding with me as we check our region to find the best in local, original country music. Come back again next week and I'll feature another artist. Route 941 is brought to you by the world's greatest shoe store, Greenlee Shoe and Country 94.